So I'm going to invite three of our directors to come up, and we're going to have a conversation about the wider work of Christian Aid and how things are looking in our current situation and the landscape we find ourselves in today. So I would invite Nick Georgiadis, who's our fundraising and supporter engagement. I'll come back here so you can hear me. Nick Georgiadis is our fundraising and supporter engagement director. Liz Walker, who is the Director of Finance and Corporate Governance, and Lisa Davidson, who is our Director of People and Culture. Thank you three for joining us. We've got some set questions, and then if we're, depending on time, and I'm keeping a watch on Tom, the timekeeper, we can ask some questions live. But first I'll come to Nick. Nick, as the Director of Fundraising at Christian Aid, you must have been as shocked as we all have been about the recent announcements to reduce UK aid at the same time that US aid is also being cut. What does that mean for Christian Aid?
Thanks, Sally. Well, Michael, who, other than being a Chelsea supporter, is generally brilliant, has already semi-answered that question. Luckily, I mean, for the communities affected by it, and globally that's millions of people, it's a tragedy. Some of the people living in most poverty in the most vulnerable circumstances will go hungry and die as a result of these decisions. It's tragic, and we must call out against them. For Christian Aid as an organisation and the programmes we work on, because of our amazing supporters, as Michael said, it's not a huge part of our work. So there are the 4 US aid programmes that have been cut, and there were more that we were hoping to work on next year that we're now not going to be able to do. We actually received very little government funding from the UK government because of previous aid cuts and because too much of the money that is in theory earmarked for foreign aid actually goes towards what should be the Home Office budget. So again, we should be calling that out, but it doesn't have an enormous impact on us. I do want to say that it's because of who we are, because of the ecumenical nature of Christian Aid, because we are powered by churches, and churches are powered by people, aren't they? That's what makes Christian Aid unique. That's what enables us to do the brilliant work, the innovative work, the life-saving, the dignity-giving, the advocacy-changing work. That's what powers that work. And that's why coming to an event like today, seeing so many committed supporters, listening to their stories, that's what inspires me. And Sally, earlier you spoke about hope. I think coming together, that unstoppable power of hope, that certain hope that we talk about, that's what, that's the real power and the fuel behind us, and nothing can stop that. So I feel excited and hopeful. Donors have given, supporters have given generously to the Gaza appeal Michael spoke about, given to our South Sudan appeal. Christian Aid Week last year saw a renewed energy and vigour, and I'm hoping to see the same again this year. I'm actually excited by what we can achieve together. This year we've also had a very, people have left gifts in wills, which has been probably be our record every year for gifts in wills. So actually, Christian Aid is in a good position to be able to tackle what is probably a depressing year in terms of the overall global context. So, yes, it's hard, but I'm fueled by hope because of our supporters.
Thank you, Nick. And I think knowing that the status quo counts on our apathy, your answer was really apropos, so thank you so very much for that. Liz, what trends are you seeing in the charity sector, and how is Christian Aid responding to those trends?
Thank you, Sally, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. The charity sector is really quite challenged at the moment, and I've spent 25 years in the sector. Can you not hear me?
Can you please speak into the microphone?
Oh, right, okay. Is that a bit better? Right. I'm conscious microphones do differ quite a bit. So I've been in the charity sector 25 years. And it's a particularly troubling time at the moment for charities. Everybody knows that the last budget round was really hard on individuals and on charities. And there was a particular issue with national insurance, which has affected everybody that's employing staff. And so that makes it really, really hard. Part of my job is to make sure that every pound that our supporters, those of you online, those of you in the room, and the many churches that you're involved with, that every pound that is donated has the greatest impact. So my role is to make sure that those resources are properly stewarded, that as much of that pound goes to supporting the communities that Michael talked about, that Katrina talked about earlier, the Guatemalan example that we heard earlier. That is why we need to do that sort of thing. And charities are really, really struggling. But as Christian Aid, as Nick has just said, we're in a reasonable place. We know what we're doing. We know how to direct our resources. Do expect, I guess, that the newspapers will carry stories over coming weeks about significant job losses in a number of charities, partly because of the USAID cuts, partly because of the national insurance stories. But the mission is key. We know what we're doing. We have a mission. We have a clarity about giving hope to the communities we work with.
Thank you. And finally, Lisa, I know this is only your third month at Christian Aid, but I wondered whether you had any reflections to share and what you're looking forward to in this next year.
Thanks, Sally, and hello to you all. Happy International Women's Day, just to echo what Sally said earlier, and also a big shout out to my fellow Northeasterners who are joining us online, as well as all of you in the room. So I am new to Christian Aid, but I'm not new to the sector, having worked in the humanitarian sector for a number of years. I think joining, I've been completely blown away by the impact, the dedication, the passion of all of our colleagues across the world in Christian Aid. But it is a very challenging time. We look at the cuts. You know, I was just talking to one of our recruitment firms last week, and the candidate market is awash with candidates because so many people are losing their jobs across the world. And that is having an impact on society, it's having an impact on political instability, it's just a huge impact. And we're lucky, as I think you've heard today, we're lucky in that not all of our contracts were affected. It was 4 contracts, it was less than 20 colleagues, but that's still having an impact. Mm-hmm. As more cuts come, we just need to be mindful of the impact that will be having on the communities in which our colleagues are working. I guess crucially, I'm really looking forward to making sure that our colleagues have the right skills, particularly in this volatile world. Resilience becomes even more important, advocacy becomes even more important, and making sure that our colleagues are equipped to have those skills in being able to deal with it. One of my team I spoke to about their salary, and their salary is not just for them, their salaries for their parents, their children, their brothers, their sisters, their community. So the impact that that has of one person losing a salary, we just need to be mindful of. So the culture of Christian Aid, rooted in our values, rooted in our faith. I'm proud to be here and I'm proud to be able to carry that into all of our colleagues. The values that we show, the behaviours that we show towards each other is what I'm really looking forward to developing and embedding across Christian Aid.
Thank you so much. I'm looking at our time guru. We've got 5 minutes. I don't see any questions on Slido. Are there questions in the room for our directors? Yes, sir. And I'll bring the microphone. We all want to hear it.
We all want to hear it. Thank you. I'm a Northeasterner as well, so I'm pleased to see you there. As I understand it, and what I'm hearing is that relationship and collaboration is the name of the game now. And you've all spoken about working with other partners, different kinds, NGOs, people on the ground, local communities, etc., but also the motivation of faith. So my question really is, are there partnerships developing with other communities of faith? I know that humanitarian organizations exist, with whatever faith group we might conjure up. So how is that going? Muslim Aid, say, or whatever?
Anyone like to answer that one?
We can't afford 3 working mics. So partnership is what we do, and so I hope I'm going to answer your question, but tell me if I don't. As Michael said, we partner with sister agencies in ACT, who are global development agencies powered by the church. The Disasters Emergency Committee is a really important partner for us, and we know that our voice is louder when we speak in unity and come together in partnership. And of course, when we are working through our programs overseas, that's how we work in partnership. And one of our roles, and one of the things that people tell us they always appreciate about us, is our role as a convener and connector and bringing people together. We want to be movement generous, so we want to be sharing with others and empowering others. So it's at the heart of what we do, but I'm not sure if that's answered your question.
My question was specifically about working with other faith communities.
So,
You mean globally?
yes.
Well, many of our partners are other faiths. So we work closely with Islamic Relief, for example. Okay, right, yes. Sorry. Well, I'm glad I asked. So yeah, we do work with other faith communities. We are, because of our Christian faith, we work for all faiths and beliefs, and that will include other faith communities. So we work in Afghanistan, we work in countries where I think, and in ways that I think if we didn't have the Christian faith, we wouldn't be able to open doors and connect with people, but actually we have an impact through and work with partners of all faiths.
Thank you, Nick. Yes, sir. Hang on, I'm going to run. Last question.
Thank you. On the sort of on the ground envelope delivery, collection, and so on, which has always been a major part of fundraising, but also publicity and so on in Britain. How are you? What's your observation over the last few years, let's say, of the response, not just actual how much money is generated that way, but also the reception to a Christian, this is one of the 2 words that everyone knows, that there's the publicity on the posters and adverts on TV and things. When I've been doing this over a long time now, there's quite a hostility sometimes to Christian influence, which it's just what's your observation of that, and is there a sort of sense of changing policy towards that, guidance towards church and Christian groups who come under that banner, about what the most strategic and best ways are, or is it just sort of carry on regardless sort of idea?
So I definitely don't think it's carry on regardless. As you've observed, one of the most powerful things about Christian Aid Week is the opportunity to have conversations. And actually, one of the things we hear is people appreciate the chance to connect within their communities as well as to hear about Christian aid. But we also hear, like you have, that where people knocked on the door in the past and used to be welcomed, and the Christian part of Christian aid was almost taken for granted, that's who we are, that's changing and becoming harder, and sometimes people are receiving a hostile reception. I think that's one of the reasons why house to house, although it still is enormously valuable, and where it can work, we do encourage it, it's harder, and we're trying to find other ways of doing it. I think we should, and it's easy to say this from the warmth of a church in Waterloo, but I would argue, one of the things that people ask me when I came in, I've been here about 5 years now, is should we downplay or get rid of the Christian in Christian aid? And absolutely not. Our supporters are overwhelmingly Christian, and that is at the heart of who we are. I think we need to think about how we have those conversations in a way that is warm and welcoming, while recognising that it's challenging, and we know that's the case. But I have heard sensed a sort of glimmer of shifting the other way, where 10, 15 years ago the new atheists were very prominent. I think that our culture is starting to appreciate the value that Christianity has brought to it, and it's starting to become, people are asking more questions and more open to it.
Thank you. And we have run out of time. I'd like to say to the folk online that the Slido began to work just now, so we'll attempt to get your questions answered online. So we won't leave you without having answered your questions. But a huge thank you to Liz, to Lisa, and to Nick. Thank you very much for sharing with us.